Two, one. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Inside Movies Galore. I am one of your hosts, but tonight we're celebrating a birthday of our good friend Mo here, who has brought us a good double feature tonight. So why don't you tell us about the second movie you subjected us to?
Well, the second half of our double feature here of Kurosawa films is Sanjuro, which is just named for the titular character, who was our main character in the previous film, Yojimbo. Definitely check out that discussion and the film itself if you haven't seen it. But this movie came out a year later in 1962. It was once again directed by Akira Kurosawa, based on Hibi Hien, I think it's called, or Hien, which is, I'm guessing, a story or a book by Shigeru Yamamoto. It had a screenplay by several Japanese folks based on that book, and that's what they did it from. It stars Toshiro Mifune, Tatsuya Nakadai, Kaiji Kobayashi, Yuzo Kayama, and many, many other people. The cast of this film is quite vast, much as was the case with Yojimbo. Plenty of people that you would recognize if you've watched a lot of Kurosawa films or Toho films in general. It's got cinematography by Fukuzo Koizumi and Takai Saito. Didn't he do the last one as well? I don't know for sure. But it's got music by Masaru Saito again, which I believe that dude also did do the first one. Jake can correct me if I'm wrong there. It was distributed by Toho, obviously, and released on January 1st of 1962. Hell of a New Year release right there. That guy joked about starting the new year with a plague in the last film, but this is definitely starting it on a good note. This is unique compared to the first one in that it wasn't originally intended to be a Sanjuro movie. From what I understand, the popularity of the character from the first film prompted Kurosawa to rework an idea he had been considering differently, and make it where it included the Sanjuro character, and that's what we got. So, in a lot of ways, this is probably a good example of Kurosawa doing kind of a rush job, but it works so perfectly because the guy is just that goddamn good, and Toshiro Mifune is that awesome as the character. So that's pretty much, the introductory shit that we need to know before we really dive into discussing this here, which, of course, we always start with our first impressions and or our history with the film. So in the interest of, allowing him to get input, let's get Brandon in here, and let's hear is this your first time with Sanjuro? And if not, when was your first experience with it? What's your history with the film and your general impressions?
Oh, mine?
No, Brandon. I was trying to let him get in there just in case he has to take off.
Is he back yet?
I don't think he's back yet.
Oh, that's right. My bad. Okay, then hit it, Dave. Give it to us, baby.
Well, this was also a first-time watch for me. And I think I'll say what I didn't say before in my intro in Yojimbo. My dad was always a big history buff, and into like a lot of older war films and westerns. And I guess because of his love of those films, I became infatuated with the Western world, and Western films are pretty much the story of America in its very beginnings. That's why I love them.
Oh, so boring.
In fact, I kind of wish that we could go back to them, because at least then,
Go to Texas.
then we could have an old fashioned justice. But that being said, I enjoyed this film. Maybe not as much as I enjoyed Yojimbo, but
this is your first time with both of them, correct?
It is my first time with both of them. I did like this film. It was a little bit different than his previous role, but it went fairly similar in style, because he's this I guess I got a kick out of the fact that he was just sleeping in the back of this like.
Oh, it's so great, dude. I laugh so fucking hard every time he pops out of there. And I don't think that might be the most unintentionally funny part of either film, but it is just because he just inserts himself into the situation that has nothing to fucking do with him. He just happens to be napping back there, like eavesdropping on this. We're gonna get in depth on this dude being just a mischievous rapscallion or whatever in this movie.
Based on
go
what
ahead,
you
Jake.
were saying about the history of this film, though, that may have actually happened because Mifune did so many films with Kurosawa, he probably took to just napping on the set, and maybe they were just filming a scene, and
Right.
he just like,
This is my movie now, motherfuckers. I could totally see it.
Yeah, he was definitely the Johnny Bravo version of a Japanese samurai.
Oh, it's great, man. And you know, just a little tidbit of trivia that we didn't touch on earlier too. Yojimbo has been especially in this movie, or not Yojimbo, Sanjuro, like originally when you think of like Kurosawa influences on Star Wars, it's always sort of Hidden Fortress, and then later obviously, you know, they incorporated stuff from Seven Samurai into it. But then there's Yojimbo stuff in there apparently as well, and in the newer Star Wars movies, which I hadn't really thought about. But like the Luke's, I think, final line in what's it, Last Jedi is like "See you later, kid," and that's basically Yojimbo's final line in this movie. Or I mean Sanjuro. Ugh. But there's that, and then, you know, there's like, I guess, parts of the design of Luke's robes and stuff in the newer Star Wars movies was also, you know, they used Yojimbo as kind of a template a little bit, making him kind of rough or whatever, which is neat, you know. That Kurosawa kind of like newer generations of people doing Star Wars have brought in different Kurosawa stuff into the mix, keeping with the theme that was always like inspiration. You know what I mean? I found it neat. I figured Kroll would get a kick out of that. But yeah, I mean, so you enjoyed it, and you didn't enjoy it as much as the first one, though, eh?
I didn't enjoy it as much as the first one, but I did like this whole political intrigue, and I did enjoy the fact that he got his name by just looking out at whatever he was looking at, and just naming himself after the flower.
right.
You know.
See, I can remember his name in this one because I know that word.
Yeah, I don't remember what it was in the first one or this one because I don't know either. But I'm not like a rad herpetology bro like you and our badass Brooklyn friend that we watch sometimes on the interwebs. I love that fucking channel so much. I've learned about plants, I guess, but mostly I've learned just about ornery Brooklynites living in California and how much they fucking hate it. And that's pretty great. So Forrest, was this your first time with Sanjuro? And if not, what is your history with it? And either way, what was your first impression of this film when you saw it?
I feel like I've seen, you know, of Kurosawa's filmography. I feel like this is at least my second time watching. I feel like this is my second time watching it. I don't know. I mean, because I definitely know that. I mean, in college that because you know, as I said over on Delusions of on Yojimbo, you know, I went through a Kurosawa phase in college, in which time I saw Yojimbo, Hidden Fortress, Ron.
Yo.
No. Also Seven Samurai. But this one, I feel like I've watched. I forget if it was either this or Ikiru that I saw around that time. Yeah, no, it's this. Yes, I mean, usually my memory's pretty good, but this one's a little blur. I forget which one I saw around that time. But yeah, I'm almost leaning towards this. This is definitely at least a second time watch for me. But yeah, again, this is again much like Yojimbo, very solid, very solid act, really solid action and editing. A lot more blood spraying around this time. Yeah, he's still, and and the Sanjuro still still a badass, still slaying,
Plotting and scheming, baby.
still scheming and slaying.
Fucking and he takes it to like some next level shit in this one
Yes.
too, where he's orchestrating a lot of people in this one to do some crazy
Pulling
stuff,
the
but
fucking
also
strings.
probably being the most benevolent that he's been out of either of the movies. We'll get to that. So I guess moving on to you, Jake. What is your is this your first time with Sanjuro? If not, same deal. You know the drill.
Well, this is not my first go around with this one. I'm not sure I necessarily did a Kurosawa phase, as Forrest said, but I definitely have went through my critical phase, my art critic phase, where I was trying to hit all the big names, and I've definitely hit several Kurosawa films over the years. Sadly, I don't think I've hit Ikiru or Hidden Fortress. I need to get those, but and I don't
you
think
haven't seen Hidden Fortress either. How many of you guys have not seen Hidden Fortress?
I have not.
I have not.
I'm the only one other than fucking Forrest. Jeez.
That's weird.
Think so.
Not that I'm in bad company with Forrest, but damn,
I've seen a lot. I've seen a lot of his stuff. And actually, Dave, you might be able to correct me if I'm wrong on this, because I think we talked about it. But wasn't George Lucas, or was it Francis Coppola, or both of them that were instrumental in getting Kagemusha made?
Yes, it was George Lucas and Francis Ford Coppola who were backing
yeah, they both did executive produce it, didn't they? And
something like that,
that's Kagemusha was one of the first.
Yeah. That was when Kurosawa had pissed off way too many people, and he was kind of in exile from Japanese cinema, and the two of them were huge fans and helped bring him back in for a few more films, which Ron was part of that group and whatever.
Yeah,
but
that was definitely after his film bout with Russia, with Dursa.
Yeah. So and I've not also, I think you guys covered one I've not seen, which was Dedeskadin. But I've seen a good number of his.
Quickly, for context, I'm not just trying to shit on you. It's Hidden Fortress is just one of the first ones I made a point to check out because of the whole Star Wars connection. So it's always surprising to me when I hear of people that haven't at least seen that one.
I've thought of it, but I'm worried that I won't like it, and it's so connected to Star Wars that
you'll dig it, dude.
I'll feel bad for not liking it.
I think you'll really dig it, actually.
Right, so that's just why I haven't checked it out. Because
Jake, you've probably seen more deep cut Kurosawa stuff that isn't the samurai shit than I have, because I've really not dabbled in much of his filmography outside of like the Jigadeki stuff or whatever you call it.
Yeah. So these two, Seven Samurai, Rashomon, High and Low, Throne of Blood, Ran, Kagemusha.
So you've hit everything else that most is like the key shit except for Hidden Fortress. That's great.
Right. But
for the first time, that's awesome.
I know, it's something to look forward to. And actually, one of these days we will eventually have to hit the Star Wars films as well. I've always had a unusual relationship with that franchise.
Because I know, like with franchises, we like to go in chronological order. What order would we go with Star Wars?
4, 5, 6.
Chronological, you'd start
4,
with
5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9. Unless you want to throw in Rogue One and and Solo as well. But yeah.
Yeah. If you're
You have
talking
to
about
go-
like
you have to
actual
go theater
chronology versus
release.
in canon chronology, but anyway, that's a whole other debate.
Galaxy Quest was better.
You have to go. You have to go. Fuck off. You have to go.
I want to see Galaxy. That'd be a good one to hit one day. But anyway,
Better.
I could swear to it. Now that I'm thinking about it, I probably could swear to it that I saw Yojimbo 3 times because I'm almost sure
I'm
I
sorry.
saw Yojimbo and then later came back and watched both of them. I'm almost sure of it. So this one is probably my second viewing. And again, it's been years. I have a copy of each one that have been sitting on my... I think I had them watched when I was still living in Salem. So it's probably been a good 15 years since I've seen this one.
Nice.
It's been a while. And strangely enough, I actually remembered parts of it very well. The so-called Camellia Mansion and the idea of the camellias going under the down the stream under the fence. I remember
I love that so much.
I love that. I love
It's
that.
easy to remember scene.
Visual trick. And there were some other parts that I probably remembered too, but overall, it was fresh enough to where it was kind of like watching it anew. You know what I mean? So it was nice. And I was a little more awake for this one, honestly, than I was for Yojimbo. So I got a little more enjoyment out of this viewing. But I enjoy both films definitely. I think they're it really, like you said, Mo. It's a lot. It's just a lot of fun watching Toshio Mifune just having fun with this particular character. He clearly is having fun with him, and even if the movie may have ended up somewhat rushed into being something other than what was intended, you can't really
Great.
you don't really get that vibe by the final product. So that's a good thing.
Exactly. I'm glad you mentioned that
Right.
because I was putting that out there for the sake of it needed to be mentioned, but this is about the best case scenario you could ever fucking hope for like a rush job where you rework a separate story to include a character that got popular. I don't imagine Kurosawa, being the type of filmmaker he was, would have done it either unless he was like, it wasn't my plan, but I actually am really hyped on his portrayal of that character, so let's do it,
Right.
He didn't do it without reason. He totally, if he really wasn't feeling it, would have told them to fuck off, because that just seems like it was his vibe. He'd tell them to fuck off and then go fishing for like 2 weeks in a cabin or something. That was his deal, dude. I guess was just I'm just writing on a typewriter. So I love the movie, man. It's, to me, one of the definitive examples of a fun sequel. Okay, I do prefer Yojimbo, but Sanjuro is just such a goddamn good time that every time that I've seen it, which apparently I've watched these a lot more than you guys, because I feel like I've seen Yojimbo at least like 6 or 7 times bare minimum, and Sanjuro I've seen about half as many times as that. So this might have been like,
are you doing your first impression?
Time. I'm just rattling it out real quick, but the point is, it's just a fun fucking sequel. It doesn't take itself too seriously. It really injects even more humor than was present in the first one, to where there's no denying that this movie is like equal parts comedy and period piece sort of violent drama, and I think that is rad. But go ahead and throw yours in there, Kroll. I see you're chomping at the bit. What was your thoughts on this one?
I mean, I wanted to, because I am surprised to hear that he was a popular character, and that's why we got him in the second, because, like I said, wasn't really a big fan of the first one. But this one, I actually really enjoyed this movie, and if it was a rush job, I don't know if that's why I enjoyed it. I don't know. But I really enjoyed this one. And
I feel like rush job isn't something we should apply to Kurosawa necessarily. It was a repurposing.
Yeah, whatever it is, I'm a huge fan of what we got. You know, I mean, it was fun. There was several funny scenes, not just because of the cultural differences that I just don't get. I mean, there was a couple of those too, but um, there was definitely legitimately funny scenes, and the whole story, and you still got to see his smarts a little bit in the first one, but I think way more in this one, and it was great how he just pulling them all around, and every time they didn't listen to him,
Oh, dude.
like he said, they screwed things up, and they
It's
finally
so
got
fucking
that, like,
fun and like heartfelt at times. It reminds me almost of
Yeah.
like a fun 80s comedy, but
And
filtered
he
through
does,
the lens of like 60s samurai film, bizarrely.
yeah, and
Uh
he doesn't like switch sides. He's helping them, and because
it's
he
like the
knows.
samurai version of Bad News Bears or some shit. Like he's this sort of fatherly figure that comes in and gets these, this clan of misfit samurai into a bunch of hijinks or something.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it is funny how he starts off in the whole thing. It's just like they're having this little meeting, and all of a sudden he just like pops his head in, like, oh, I have a knees drop, and they're all like, oh, like freaking, like about to try to kill him or whatever, and then he's like, well, hold on, and starts saying how the main guy, the Chamberlain, is must be this ugly dude and doesn't, blah blah blah, and the other one looks the part and blah. It's just so funny. I love the part when you actually see the Chamberlain at the end. And that's why I got the name
Yeah,
Horseface, because
classic.
that's where he
Yeah.
looks, and I'm like, oh shit, he looks like he got hit with a shovel too many times. He
really is kind of ugly.
so fucking smashed and long, and I'm just like, wow. It
Whack
is
fucking
funny how
eyebrows
he.
on that boy
It,
too,
it
man.
is funny how the dude
Nowhere
embraces
near as
it.
good as the unibrow from the previous film.
Yeah, it is funny how the dude embraces it, and he tells that joke about
Yeah.
him riding on a horse, and they said that his face was longer than the horses. The rider's face is longer than the horses, and
This
I
whole
laughed
movie
at that.
really
And,
embraces the comedy, which
yeah,
maybe I didn't
yeah.
fully appreciate until this viewing of it for this discussion. But it's like it really is just straight up like comedic hijinks for
Oh
most
yeah,
of the movie.
which I like. I love comedy, so I'm not huge on the samurai and everything. So you throw comedy on anything, and I don't like anything. I mean, just
Strange that,
about maybe not
strange that I didn't
anything,
pick up
but you
on
know
it.
what I mean. You throw comedy in there, and I'm very much I'm gonna like it
Right.
level one and then
What were you trying to say, Forrest?
I'll say, yeah, it's one thing because I know that you guys have brought this up, but actually the comedy movie is actually one aspect of it I didn't quite pick up on.
Oh wow, yeah. I mean, there's so many like when they come out of the fucking floorboards like it's a clown car. I mean,
Well, he did
I
the
knew
same thing in the first movie.
Or like
They did it to more of a degree.
What's that?
or like
Mitch?
the one a couple of things that I had to note in the message board. You had that one quote that she had, the lady had, killing people is a bad habit. I just thought that was kind of hilarious. That lady, generally, her and to a degree her daughter, but like she was the pampered, aloof,
Yeah,
like
yeah, she kind of annoyed me at times.
she clearly was detached from reality in this
Completely.
sense.
I've never
And
been in this barn.
but
But
it
she
just
has
she was so game for everything that was going on. Like sometimes people in
Kept
that
going over the wall.
some people in that situation would probably be like just horrified and unable to cope, but she was just like so easygoing about it that it was kind of hilarious. And then of course again you did have that one dude, that one the what, I don't remember his exact title, but he was in on the conspiracy. The one dude that I said looked exactly like the Pout Pout fish, and I mean I swear he did. It was
Isn't that motherfucker from like the Godzilla movies and shit?
he might be. What was his name? He was He was Kurofuji. That was Takashi Shimura. He's been in a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I feel like
What didn't we see? Wasn't he in? What did we see him in? He did some Zatoichi stuff. He did. Oh yeah, and he's the chief investigator in High and Low. But I feel like he played the sake brewer in the other film, the Yojimbo.
High and Low was an amazing film by Kurosawa.
Right.
One I hope we cover one day.
I'm gonna
Right.
be getting it, but I still need it, and I still haven't seen it, so I'm looking forward to it.
It's actually a It's more of a murder mystery. Yes, he plays Dr. Yamane in Godzilla.
That's what I
Yes.
thought. Yeah, I knew that we had watched something all together.
Yeah.
We talked about that dude.
Godzilla!
I think we maybe made a frog-like comment about him. And I mean, I'm sure he knew that was going on. You know, you don't look like that much like a frog without knowing it. You know.
You got a frog and a horse.
He's a beloved dude, though. I mean, he's great in the Godzilla movies. So
Right.
he's in the first two, actually, I think, and then he comes back around for like some appearances later, maybe. My dog was barking, and that totally threw off my train of thought. So basically, where we enter the plot here in Sanjuro is.
Well,
Sanjuro's
we got
just
Brandon
napping.
back. We want to.
Oh, we do. Brandon, was this your first go around with Sanjuro? And if so, what was your impressions? You know the drill.
Yeah, much like the Yojimbo, basic background story is the same. Where I had found the used copies of the DVDs and watched it, and that was a few years back, and well, more than a few years since Movie Stop is no longer existing. I don't know, when did they close, Jake? Do you remember?
May they rest in peace. It was a few years back. What would you say? Maybe 6 or 7, maybe?
I think they closed here. Wave.
We had one that closed way before that, but the other one held out for a bit. They paired up with an online vendor and tried to keep going for a year or so.
Family
That's pretty
Video was one of your guys' other ones out there that just recently, and recently being any point before the pandemic when time stopped for a while. But I feel like a couple of years ago, wasn't that when Family Video finally went out of business?
I know that I heard about it going out of business. We didn't have any here, but I do understand where that is, and we
might be more of a Midwest thing.
But yeah, it's it is sad because stores like that. I mean, Second and Charles is pretty good, but Movie Stop was there's something about that. But
Right.
Blockbuster was the last one to last around here, and that's been gone for well over 10, 15 years.
But nostalgia aside, this one was a fun rewatch. I didn't get to watch it as well as I wanted to because I was in the midst of a very distracting period, so I could see what was going on the screen, but not always read what was going on. But I thought it was interesting. I did not like it as well as the first one. I didn't feel like it was as coherent for me. I don't know why. I felt like there was still some of the basic stuff there. I mean, you still have him outsmarting people and doing his thing, but there's just something there. And I'm not familiar enough with A Few Dollars More to say whether that was a
I feel like
of this or not.
And I think someone mentioned it, but I feel like it was sort of a case of them borrowing a bunch of stuff from Yojimbo for both the movies. I don't think they took too much from Sanjuro and for a few more dollars.
I think for A Few Dollars More was less associated with it.
Yeah.
They borrowed a little. But they got
hot water was its own thing at that point.
They got in hot water over the first movie. Kurosawa and his co-producer sued Sergio Leone and some of them. Like, supposedly Kurosawa told Leone, "Look, I like your movie. It's a great movie. The problem is it's my movie."
He didn't fucking ask permission,
and he has gone on record saying that he thinks he made more off of a fistful of dollars than he did off of Yojimbo.
Well, yeah, because A Fistful of Dollars had more worldwide acclaim at
Right.
the time.
Yeah.
But this one, like I say, this one still, it has its charms. I want to take time if I ever get a nice long spat of time where I can just sit down and watch stuff, in retirement. But I do want to sit down and just watch this carefully again because there were some aspects that looked interesting. Some things annoyed me, like all of the the troop of rebels that follow him.
Oh, that was great.
Annoyed the heck out of me.
That was great.
But
I thought they were hilarious, bro.
That was great. That was so fucking bad.
leading around the
funny.
seven dwarves.
It was.
It was so great.
He was leading
I
the
would have
idiots.
loved if he had taken them to a hut and they all had beds with their names carved in them.
It was
melted my
he was-
heart, man.
He was leading the idiots, the 9 idiots.
But that was my first impression. Like I say, I thought it was good. I didn't like it as well as I did the first movie, but I still thought it was fun and entertaining, and definitely want to rewatch it again.
Should play a drinking
Right.
game. Drinking game. Every time he calls someone an idiot, you take a drink.
Oh, you'd be fucking.
It'd have to be
crap.
sake. You gotta do it appropriately.
Yeah,
Well,
every
like I
time they
said, you know,
fail.
regardless of where you fall on the first film, I don't think there's anyone that liked the first film. I would wager there's not too many people that like the first film or intrigued by it enough to continue into the sequel that don't end up also really enjoying Sanjuro. It's just a fun movie.
Well, like I said, I didn't like.
If
the
I had to
first
give
one
a
that much,
vote,
but
maybe
loved
for
this one.
the most fun movie in Kurosawa's filmography that I've ever seen, it's Sanjuro, because it's just a bunch of like goofy hijinks, maybe he did do straight up comedies outside of this. I don't know. But this, qualifies for me. Basically,
check those out if you did.
the whole plot can really be explained in the first opening scene of the movie, because that's exactly how we get it. There's basically this clan is trying to weed out corruption from within their ranks. The leader of this resistance group that's trying to do this is this kid that is the nephew, I think, of the current
Right.
leader of the region.
Yeah.
And he thinks basically the whole gimmick with this group is they always think the wrong thing and don't listen right away,
Idiots.
So they think that fucking the uncle must be corrupt because they brought this thing to him, this petition for them to all fucking, weed out this corruption or whatever. And the uncle kind of brushed it off. How do you know it's not me? It could be anybody, basically. So in a roundabout way, saying, let's look into it more. Let's not just immediately do a public thing about it. But we don't realize that till later in the film.
You don't have such a prominent chin, lower face as this guy does, as we come to find out. If you're not pensively stroking your chin all the time, you know what I mean? There's a reason he looks like a horse, if that makes sense.
A lot of worrying about the right things and positioning himself correctly.
But of course, them being
Charles,
impressionable, they think because he's, and Sanjuro spots it right away and calls him on it. He's like, let me guess, this Chamberlain, he's kind of ugly, isn't he?
Yeah,
And they're all like,
then he talks about the
well,
other
yeah,
guy
they
and-
basically they think that he's the dude, but Sanjuro right away points out that it's probably the other guy, which does turn out to be true. And like you guys are alluding to it, he talks about the dude being ugly and, the other dude, basically people looking the part. So they're getting, assigned guilt because
Right.
of their horse faces, which is pretty fucked up. But,
it is.
that kind of sets the whole thing in motion. He really just injects himself into this group of, wayward samurai that are trying to weed out the corruption in their clan. while suspecting the wrong people and, you know, having honorable intentions, but maybe not they're idiots, like Kroll points out.
Idiots, imbeciles. He calls them imbeciles first, and then he goes back to idiots, and that's all he calls them the rest of the time.
See, in this film, they kind of mention later that Sanjuro had asked them for money, but it's not immediately apparent that he's making anything on this. It just sort of feels like
he takes a tiny bit, like the guy hands him his purse, and he takes like a few coins out of it, and that'll be enough for now. And I don't think he ever really takes any more later. Like
this one feels very much more like he's doing it for his own entertainment than he is really doing it to make money. You know?
Yeah, he feels like he's doing it to help them out, and like I said,
he's just bored and figures this will be a good bit of fun. You know.
Get some free food and drink out of it.
It even more fun of a movie because it's like, well, fuck it, we're just doing this for shits and giggles now. Like he was trying to at least maybe get rich in the first one, but now he's just like, I just kind of like doing this. You know?
It was a blast. Let's do this again.
What do you guys think of that whole opening scene where, you know, Sanjuro is first revealed stepping out of the I fucking love like I've said before, I laugh every time that I watch it because it's just like, hey, let me get in on that. You know, that sounds like
it's so fucking hilarious. Because they're all like freaking out, like where the hell did you come from? And you're eavesdropping, and he's like, relax, and then he just tells them exactly. He tells them, oh, sometimes, you know, a spectator will see everything, you know, and the people playing the game, and he just tells them all the things, and he offends them right away about saying about the other guy being corrupt, and they got all upset, and he's like, relax, just let me get through it, and, you know, he just tells them, and, you know, I love how everything he says comes true, and he proves everything he says, every detail comes true, you know. Every time they screw something up, he has to figure out a way to get out of it and fix it. And he does.
I love that he just happened to be there at the time. It just felt like he just dropped in on them as he can.
It does underscore what idiots they were or how reckless they were, because they're concerned about rampant corruption, and the guy admits his uncle told him to be careful. You don't know who you can trust. And so what do? They all rush. And the other guy, the regent or whatever his name was, or whatever he was, had said, quickly, get together. Everyone, get everyone together and we'll meet up. And Sanjuro immediately spots a trap with that. But still, all this stuff. And what do? They rush to a public space,
and just blatantly fucking talk about it while some asshole like Sanjuro is sleeping.
They didn't even check to see if they were alone. That's the point I was getting at. They didn't even check.
They were idiots.
There's several levels of underscoring that they're fucking dopes in that first scene. You know? Right. And I love that he takes them under his wing, but he just knows that it's going to be a good bit of fun, and it really does turn out to be pretty fucking entertaining. Pretty much, you know?
I feel like I remember him in that scene, but certainly at some point in the film. So I think in that scene, he pretty much says, "If I leave you all alone, you're all going to die."
Yeah, he
says, "I can't just watch you bumble your way to your death."
Bumble your way through this. Yep, to your death. Yeah.
So, for those who watch this, have watched a lot of other samurai movies, I swear that this was Lone Wolf and Cub. Did they do that in one of the Lone Wolf and Cub movies, where somebody was hiding out in the hotel and he was like, "No, y'all need to get the hell out of here. This is my room. I didn't give you permission," just like he did here.
That happens all the time in samurai movies. But Toshiro Mifune does it in a way that just makes it so much more badass. And then he starts absolutely whipping the shit out of an entire crowd of fucking dudes without even taking his sword out of its sheath. He's just fucking giving them stick time, baby. Get the fuck out of here. You know? You woke me up from my nap. It's such a good cover, you know. And then that leads to the clown car scene that we touched on earlier, where they pop out of the floorboards, which is just clearly intentionally funny. I don't know how
No, it's hilarious.
anyone could miss the comedy in this movie, because it is it's
Like,
goofy.
It's rampant.
The movie itself is goofy from
Totally.
the get-go, you know.
Where
I like
basically he goes around and he's like, he looks out the side of the, like through the cracks of the wall, and he's like,
Yeah.
Yep,
It just
yep,
as
I was
thought.
right.
We're getting fucking.
We're surrounded. You know,
Yeah.
he looks at all the walls.
There's like 100 fucking people coming over in. It's like,
Yeah.
wow. They're like really trying to get them.
And again, as we know from the previous film, Sanjuro could fuck all those guys up, I'm pretty sure. You know,
Right.
if he really just wanted to end the whole thing right there, he could just slaughter all of those.
But he
people.
wanted to get to the bottom of the whole corruption and let everything play out. And
Yeah,
plus,
he
you know,
wanted the entertainment of all of it. You know?
Plus, kind of make them to be a little bit heroes too, instead of just him being it. You know, like they had a part in it. You know, even though he could have done it all by himself.
Well, of course, this scene also, when he goes out to confront the crowd, and you're introduced to another key player in this one, Hande Maroto.
I was waiting for that fight, and again, it was short. It was sweet,
Right.
but too short.
And notably, Maroto's played by Tatsuya Nakadai, who played our young would-be gang boss in the previous film. So
yeah, every time that I see this dude,
Oh, did he? I didn't
Sanjuro,
realize
I'm
that.
always like, huh, you know, like his face
Yeah.
startles me for a second. It's like, again. He's a strange looking character, man.
Yeah, he is.
And then this movie, I swear they were doing it to be funny. They had to have been, because there's so many times where he's talking to those two dudes sitting in that room, but he like opens that little cupboard door, like in the bottom corner of the wall. Where, you know, I get it. He's like standing on another level, so he can open this door and like talk into the room to them. But it just looks like his little head's popping out of a cupboard. And then we also do have a guy that's popping out of a literal cupboard several different
Oh, the
times.
closet dude! Oh my god!
I fucking love that
I
shit,
love that.
dude.
I love that.
Oh,
like,
that was great.
He does it like 3 times. He jumps. I talk to them, and then he looks around. And
He does it through the
goes,
whole movie. It's way
"Excuse
more
me,"
than 3
and he goes
times.
back into the closet. I'm just like, oh my! Like at the end
He
when
keeps
he's
popping out and
celebrating,
giving him good advice and going back into the closet. And like he didn't escape because it was, you know, the lady was so nice that she didn't think he would, so he just didn't feel good about
when
escaping.
when he's celebrating with them, they're all jumping up and down, and they're like, "Oh, shh!" And they're all celebrating, and then all of a sudden he stops, looks around, and turns around, and goes back in the cupboard. I was just like, I
love it.
I was
So
laughing.
fucking much,
Like,
dude.
it was so fucking hilarious. It reminded me kind of like Three Stooges, but way funnier.
That guy's part of the gang, okay? He's like that
He
unofficial
totally
band
was.
member, you know?
He totally was part of the band, and he just didn't get
He
inducted.
turned the tide with good advice at a couple
Yeah,
of
he
different points in the
totally
movie,
did.
too.
He totally did.
Just some good
Like-
closet advice, man.
Yeah.
That he goes back in there after eating his fucking rice. I love it. Anyway, though, so where are we at? I forgot.
They got out of the floorboards and they confronted the people and sent them on their way.
Yeah, and then pretty much from there, you know, we're swept up into the whole plot of the film. There's like, you know, they're trying to rid their thing, their clan of like corruption, right? But the dude who is, you know, the actual corrupt one or whatever has kidnapped like his uncle, right? And he's like holding him and trying to force him to write this confession to all of these illicit deeds so that it will, you know, cover up for them, you know, all the shit that they've been doing or whatever, right? And that's kind of the whole plot of the entire film is that gimp right there. So they're basically trying to, you know, rescue the fucking Chamberlain or whatever he is from the superintendent. It's all very complicated on that end with Japanese politics of the time. I don't understand any of it, but basically I like to think of it as they're trying to rescue like the mayor of their city from the governor of the state, kind of a thing. And that's that's it. I mean, I'm not leaving anything out. That's kind of the entire movie, and it's a series of
Pretty
like
much.
chess moves between the two sides, with what's going on there. Sanjuro is pretty much just hanging out in the background for a lot of the stuff, or just like kind of steering it subtly in different directions. There's
Yep.
several scenes in the movie where you can, especially with hindsight and knowing that it wasn't originally supposed to have Sanjuro in it, it definitely does feel like he's like photobombing certain scenes of the movie where he just comes up out of the background. He's like, you shouldn't do that shit.
Well, notably, when he meets Moroto, he's offered a job actually with the guard.
Yeah.
So he cashes that in, and he was trying to get sort of the inside track, but they messed it up.
Yep, they didn't trust his ass.
Yeah, yeah. And although first we should note that they're kind of, I mentioned the Camellia Mansion earlier. That is Kurofuji's domicile. He's one of the conspirators, and it turns out one of the people in the rebellion lives next door to him, and so Sanjuro's like, "Okay, we'll go there," and they're all like, "Are you crazy?" And he's like,
Dude, I feel
no one looks for what's right under their nose,
And I love the dude inside the closet the entire time,
Maybe
Yeah,
some of
he's
you guys
popping
can
out
help
of
me
the
out,
closet,
but
like,
I swear to God.
I was just observing all this shit, but
Oh, he's the best, man. But I mean, maybe some of you guys can help me out with this. I swear that there's a horror film that apes the whole Sanjuro, like, because as Jake just pointed out, it turns out at the end that the dude that they were looking for the whole fucking movie was actually just next door the entire time.
I love that. I thought that
Black
was
Phone kind of end. Well, I don't want to spoil that for people, but there's a neighborly thing with the ending, and then there's several other fucking horror films I feel like that have done that as well. I just can't pinpoint any others because Black Phone is the most recent one that I've watched.
Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Silence of the Lambs is a good example again. Although a different aspect of it, but yeah, sometimes that which is closest and most familiar is almost too obvious.
Exactly, and you gotta wonder if Sanjuro didn't have a hand in inventing that sort of device for things that have done it afterwards.
Well, of course, the other, it's also kind of the. You could almost call it it's almost an aspect of what you might call the Clark Kent effect too. That if you're not looking for it, you won't see it sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like that. I want to say When a Stranger Calls, maybe, or one of those where they're saying, the call is coming within the house, and that's that
Black
kind
Christmas
of thing.
does that.
Yeah.
The calls, we figured out where the calls are coming from. Inside
Black
the
Christmas does that, but a decade later.
Yeah, so that's maybe they looked at something like that and they were like, "Yeah, this is a cool idea."
And that's totally a nerd thing to do, man. Like if you like, you're gonna try to ape some shit, maybe don't do it from a horror film for a horror film because that's obvious. But if you took something from Sanjuro and worked with it,
and of course, Scary Movie spoofs it. I'm right behind you. So,
but yeah, I mean, it's interesting to think about. But I swear, Black Phone being a good example, where there's one where it turns out at the end the whole shit was like happening, next door, kind of. And that's just interesting to think about. But yeah, I don't know. Where were we? Anyone got any thoughts on where we're at so far?
Well, I mean, plot-wise, you kind of wrapped up the summary of it. It was, but that's basically the idea: is that you are.
He says to save the women first because they want to save the uncle, but he's saying
there's
we don't know what
stuff we can plug in there.
Right.
I mean,
there's things he did that would allow him to do better. That they're just like, let's rush in and do this, and then they just rush in half cocked, and then he saves their butts and
Right.
calls
I mean,
them
if we really
stupid.
want to do the beat by beat, I think initially they go to the house or whatever, to their complex, which it is worth noting that this takes place in a significantly nicer neighborhood than fucking
Oh yeah,
Oh, yeah.
The
And,
town in this is beautiful and picturesque, and I would love to, like I said, just spend a vacation there. But
I like
you know,
Yeah, I love
basically,
that little brook that goes.
they
from
think they
one
know
side
where
to
the
the
dude is being held, so they creep over there, and it leads to one of the best scenes of the movie where he's got this whole centipede of fucking, you know, and he says that much, but he's like, we
He
can't
Well,
does.
do
this isn't gonna work. Let's split up.
Yeah. Well,
Oh, we know we need someplace to hide. Is what he says. He says, well, there's a barn over there. He goes, okay, let's go hide in there.
and then they run into the
woman.
serving girl who
Who says basically what happened, and that the
and
uncle is kidnapped.
and they're all about ready to just rush her out of there, and then he just looks at her, he's like, would you be willing to go back and get them all drunk? And she gets it, and she goes back, and he looks at them, he's like, she's a better samurai than any of you.
one of the best moments of the movie, you know.
Yeah. And then they
He's
get the
much
women
more
out.
blunt about it than Jacob put it. I think he just says, "Send her back."
You know,
Yeah.
almost
And they're
do a
like,
drinking
"What?" He's
game.
like, they're gonna freak out.
You
if
could
she's
almost
gone.
do a drinking game alone with how many times he tells that group, "Wait," you know.
Wait, an
Throw
idiot.
into it with
Wait, an
idiots.
idiot.
Idiot is every time you see that word in the movie, if you drink, you're gonna be fucked, because he calls several
and actually,
people idiots.
we should know, we keep mentioning the guy in the closet. I think this was where they found him. Basically, they had gone.
Yeah, because
And
the
there were,
plan
like,
was
3 guards.
kill 2 of the guards and kidnap one of them, and the one that
Right.
kidnapped is and being the guy in the closet.
See,
And
I
then
would
when
say
they-
this for
And
Sanjuro,
that was the
dude.
one that
Like,
she'd let out, and he was just
Yeah,
eating,
yeah,
and
that's what
yeah,
that's
we'll
the
get
one.
there, but
That's the same one, dude.
the moment where they
Same guy.
capture him
Yeah.
is a good example. Okay, this movie, like Yojimbo, we only really got to see his sword skill on display a couple of times in the movie. You know, he really sticks to most of the scheme, and it would be easy to go into Sanjuro thinking that that's kind of the same way, but we do actually get to see him use his sword skill a lot more in this one.
Right.
Yeah, that was,
But
I
just
like.
in smaller bursts that are like way cooler.
Yeah,
you know?
way better, way better.
This is something we've mentioned in the past, that sometimes the fight should be targeted and moves should be to the point, and they do that a lot in here, I think.
Well, the final fight should be a little bit longer, I think. I mean, it was
not
cool.
realistic though, you know.
No, but you have 2 fucking awesome people. You want to see a little bit of a fight, you know.
I mean, that's what happens with samurai duels and things. Whether you want
That's the problem with the samurai movies.
We touched on it in the Lone Wolf and Cub
They're
thing.
too realistic.
quick and over with in like 2 seconds.
It's the same thing with westerns, though. You think about it, you've got the bad guy.
Oh yeah,
But when they have that final fight, it's not like back and forth. And they're
that's why westerns
dodging
suck,
bullets.
dude.
Let's put it this way, dude.
Westerns do not
Okay,
suck.
It's not like say.
That's why
whatever your opinion on that is, like on a martial arts level, when you watch somebody like Toshiro Mifune handle a blade around extras or whatever, even though he's not really killing them, that dude scares the piss out of me. I mean, he's just like the dude from Lone Wolf and Cub or Zatoichi.
Yeah, he does. But I mean, that's what I'm saying.
I'd probably lose in a gunfight against that dude, even if he only had swords. You know, there's just when he's coming at you and you're seeing that sword skill on display. Toshio Mifune could end a room full of dudes like that in a real situation.
I actually do want to mention one thing from the last movie I forgot about. At the end, when you see that boy you saw in the beginning, and he yells "Mama," and he's like, "Drop you, so go run home to your mother, and you eat gruel.
Enjoy a life of eating gruel.
You eat gruel the rest of your life." And the
Right.
kid runs up, "Mama!" It's just fucking hilarious.
I do think
There.
Children should never play with swords.
When
There is an interesting moment here after they have the encounter with the guards, and that's when they've decided to go, back to that one dude's place, and they're trying to escape, and the women won't climb over the fence because it wouldn't be proper.
That mother
And
annoyed the hell out of me with that.
He
one.
gets down on his hands and knees, and they just uses. He's like, use me as a stepping stool, and it works. It gets them to go along and get and save their own butts, but it also ends up coming back to help him later, because that was one of the reasons that dude in the closet ended up helping them out. He's like, I saw what he did, letting her step on him, and I feel like he's someone I can trust. That's
Yeah.
like.
Which is the whole conundrum of the movie for the supporting characters, is whether or not Sanjuro is a dude that they can really bet behind all their cards behind, sort of thing. And people obviously like Closet Dude, which we will refer to him henceforth. Closet Dude knows that Sanjuro is a good guy because he could have just killed him. I mean, he easily wasted those other two dudes. And then he was also present, I think, for the preceding conversations with the old lady, where she's talking about I also love the part where they basically chastise Sanjuro for referring to her as the old lady or whatever, and he's just like, you know what, fuck it, like, she is the old lady, kind of.
Well,
but
go
ahead.
I do like how the women of this film get more coverage on the screen time.
Yeah, that's what I was about to get to. Like, Sanjuro,
More positive
I think in this one is
representation.
definitely realizing that killing motherfuckers is a bad habit, so he's kind of following along with that, and I think that dude in the closet, that's part of what sways him as well, is like he said, the old lady was like too nice to think that he would escape, so he just didn't leave,
Well, yeah, she came out with that saying, "You are this unsheathed sword," but the best swordsman,
which is great,
is the one that keeps his sword sheathed.
Yes, yeah,
and when you're looking at that, and when you look at the types of battles throughout this, I mean, you talk about a lot of poetry, a lot of work within it. It's the buildup, and I wanted to say this a little bit earlier, but I couldn't get the word in. But essentially, a lot of it is not the fight itself. Like, you go to something like old Jean-Claude Van Damme movie, they're fighting and getting up, and it's almost silly how long the fights go, because it's like, well, they'd have been down with the first minute of the fight, and they keep going. But this one, that the fight's not going to last long, and the tension is so high that is really where the fight is. You see the battle of wills right before the strike, where if you not know who wins, you could be sitting there going, that anticipation is just maddening.
A good battle strategist.
And the same thing with the gunslingers too.
Yeah, it's exactly the same thing. I mean, the point is with those types of confrontations is that they're not going to be flashy. It's not going to be a bunch of dudes doing parkour and like fucking swinging random, weapons at each other for days, As fun as that is to watch sometimes, I've always respected the old samurai movies for keeping it legit,
Yeah.
If you were to really sword fight a dude like that with katanas, that's how it goes, because katanas also can't survive like a bunch of parries and stuff. They're not blades that are designed for that, like a British longsword or something.
No, that's why I don't like katanas as much.
It's a precision instrument, so they very literally were like the pre-gun gunslingers, And I think most samurai movies do a really good job of portraying that, you know. So 2-3 move affair, you know. So if you're gonna come at a motherfucker and try to like fight him, you better know your shit, or else you're dead in like 3 moves, you know.
Or one move.
And that's why a tubby motherfucker like Tommy Dubs from Lone Wolf and Cub can splatter dudes all over the screen. When you watch him do it in the movie, or movies, it's totally plausible because you can see how good that dude is with a sword. You know, same thing with Zatoichi, and I would say the same thing with Toshiro Mifune. This dude puts on an amazing display of swordsmanship, I think, in this film. Through all of the brief spurts that we get to see him use it. But essentially, you know, they end up fucking kidnapping that dude, our closet fella, and basically realizing that, you know, they're clearly not keeping like this dude that they presume they've kidnapped at, you know, an obvious location. So the movie basically becomes a game of cat and mouse between them trying to get these guys to give away the location, and them trying to lure them out to a location to assess their proper numbers. Because
And
the whole gimmick of the movie is that they think there's way more of them than the 10 that there are.
right.
So
Sanjuro works hard to sell that point, because that's one of the only, you know, he keeps trying to. He gets hired by Murata. He goes in and manages to get hired, and then of course they don't trust him, so they come along and muck it up. So
Well,
he has
four
to
of them
capture
trusted
them.
him, and five of them trusted him, and
Yeah.
four didn't. And then they came up with a good idea of 2 and 2 go just
Yeah.
to check it out, which wasn't bad idea.
And
Unfortunately,
he
they
and
got
Murata end
caught,
up having to
and it fucked
capture
it up.
them.
And it fucked it all up. But
Yeah.
they got caught. If they hadn't gotten caught, you know. But you know, like I said, it wasn't all of them. Like half and half was like, you know, believing.
But that
him,
leads to a
you know,
great sort of. But that leads to a great improvisation on his part, where he
oh yeah.
he builds up the numbers and talks about how many there are, and he's like, we need to get it reinforcements or whatever. And so they send 3 people out, and he's like, that's not enough, I'm going 2.
oh, I love that fucking scene so much.
And
Yeah,
like
he kills
minutes
3 of them.
later, he's like, they're all dead already. I caught up to them, they were already, and of course he did it himself.
Yeah, but who would
But
believe, you know,
they're
like
like,
that you could actually
they're
do
already
that
dead,
quickly?
and then everyone rushes off after them.
No.
No,
Yeah.
actually, I think
The main guy.
dude
The main
tells
guy
him like,
goes.
no
He
one
says,
would know you there,
I'll
so
go.
it
And
is
the main guy goes,
actually
no,
kind of
you stay here, and you
doesn't work
lead
out.
my troops. And so he leaves, and when he leaves, he you know, Sanjuro goes
Destroy
back in
the
and slaughters
fucking-
everybody.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, they all
murders
go
him.
rushing
One of
after
my
freeing his
favorite
friend.
moments of the movie is where the samurai, you know, the group of bumbling samurai come, or the ones that, you know, because basically, okay, he tried to go in there and offer his services to them. We've kind of bumbled how we explained this. So he tried to go in there and offer his services to, you know, the dude that originally offered him the job at that first encounter. And you know, half of the people, like Kroll was talking about, didn't trust him. The other half did. So they sent 2 people from each side to go, like, basically monitor what he was doing. They saw him hooking up with this dude and seemingly making like good friends. So they decided to attack. He does his best job to like preserve all of their lives, you know. I think he even tells the other dude, like, take him alive because then we can get information from him, kind of a thing. But you know, then they end up he's stuck with all of these captured dudes from his own team. So, you know, he constructs this situation where he sends these dudes off. He murders the 3 guys, comes back, and where we're at right now in the discussion. So, you know, that like is just to provide context to what we're talking about. But basically, Then the real mastery of it comes into play, where he fucking murders everybody inside of the gang complex, and makes it look like he, just basically.
Well, again, as I was saying, they got
got tied
Murata
up.
to run off with everyone there, leaving a few people behind to watch out. And yeah, he does it, and then he has his guys tie him up and pretend that they were the ones that.
Yeah, after he
It's fun.
slaps the fucking piss out of them for making
Right.
Yes.
him slaughter
Yeah,
all
for
of
making
these
him kill
guys.
all those people.
That's what I was getting at.
Yes.
Was
In all fairness, they deserved it.
Oh, yeah.
they did, but that was
They
one of
did.
my favorite moments in the movie,
They
because
did.
you can tell that Sanjuro's kind of taking what the old lady said seriously. And you can tell maybe he had softened a little bit right out of the gate, because one of the best scenes of the movie is where he just beats the absolute piss out of those guys at the beginning,
Right.
without even taking his sword out of its sheath. Like, he's just trying to
Yeah,
get
he's just
them to
whipping them with the
legitimately
sheath.
leave them on. So when he smacked all those dudes, it never fails to make me laugh my ass off.
Yeah, it was great.
But it also makes perfect sense, because he's trying not to make this escalate on that level like it did in Yojimbo. One crazy sequence we left out of our discussion of that is when the two sides are trashing each other's facilities. That's a solid highlight of this double feature for sure, where all those sake tanks are like exploding all over the place, or and we didn't quite get anything on that level in this one, like silk factories burning down or anything like that. But it being kind of rushed, it makes sense. They didn't have the money maybe to throw to doing that stuff, but
They didn't need it, though.
And also with the idea that they really didn't know where the rebels were. Yeah.
Well, that's kind of the whole thing through the movie. Like, as we mentioned, they're doing these things to try to lure each other out of hiding, basically.
It's like it's like those movies and shows where you have like a hotel room or where everyone's going in one door and someone's going in the other door, all trying to look for each other, and they're all just missing each other.
Like Scooby-Doo shit, yeah.
Yeah, not Scooby-Doo, but other things.
Anyways, people I'm pretty sure know exactly with the running between the fucking doors what we're talking about there, because that is definitely what is kind of happening in this movie, but it's being orchestrated by Sanjuro and our weird googly-eyed friend from the last movie that was so trigger happy. I
didn't realize it was the same dude.
It is, dude. I don't know how you didn't when it kept revealing his face behind that little cupboard door. I don't know, man. I mean, that's kind of basically the movie. Am I missing anything that we should?
There's a lot of good hijinks, yeah.
Well, they had the last bit of it was he got back with his group and concocted a scheme to lure them away from the house. I think they kind of figured out where the Chamberlain was. They wanted to lure everyone away so that they could just go in and do like a surgical extraction, basically.
That's right. And that's where
they sent them all
like in the house as a guest or whatever.
We forgot about the decoy part.
Yeah.
The decoy part, and the other army got blamed for being
arrested,
conspirators, but they weren't. They were like friends of them or whatever. That was neat too, and they wanted to go rush in and grab the people while they were moving, and he's like, wait.
Yeah. Another time where they nearly fell victim to
yeah. They had to tell him wait like 4 times. They were just about to say, he's like, one of them to shut up to him, and they were just about to do it, and that's when the other riders came and saved the day. Like, they came just in time or they would have been caught.
I think the heartfelt stuff too, where they're like realizing Sanjuro's their friends and defending, all that stuff with those dudes is probably one of my favorite things in the movie, which we'll get to. But yeah, basically the movie just pretty much becomes a series of them trying to lure each other out of hiding,
Yeah.
Right.
If anything, the gimmick like kind of falls apart a little bit in that sense, but it's replaced with enough fun like hijinks that it doesn't really
Well,
matter.
It's interesting this final baiting thing that he does to get them out to this temple. That's they said it's about the right distance to do what we need to do.
Oh, dude, when
He
they realize that there's not a second floor to it.
Yes,
that
there's like one little
so
aspect to
tense.
the lie, one little detail to the lie that not everyone no one really catches right away.
Yeah, one person
But
on each side ends up catching it,
Yeah,
but
somebody
took a bit.
could, so
Right.
it makes it. I love that where it keeps cutting between him talking to them and those dudes like milling around in that
Yeah.
space. It's like such
Well-
a good way to build tension in the scene.
Well, and also we had like your main dude, your main villain dude, Kikuli, goes with everyone takes the bait, goes with everyone, leaving Takabayashi and Kurofuji behind, and then of course Sanjuro ends up getting captured and tied to a rock by Murata. But he had said he was going to do a signal, which he's like, "I'll set the place ablaze," and the woman's like, "Oh no, that would be too
that's so
much."
chaotic.
And then the daughter has this great idea, like, "Why don't you use the stream and send camellia blossoms through the stream?" And everyone's like, "Oh, what a lovely idea!" And he just kind of scoffs at it. But I love how that ends up playing out because he is tied to the rock, and these other people come out. The Takabayashi and Kurofuji and someone else come out, and he tricks them into if I don't send a certain signal, they'll attack. And he gets them to send the signal.
And they'll slaughter you all.
That was great.
It reminds me of something from like a Leslie Nielsen movie
How many?
or something.
Like, just keep sending the flowers. Just keep sending. They send like fucking like 5 flowers or something. It's just like they just keep going down the stream.
I like how he timed it because he basically got their interest up, and he knew they were going to think about talking about doing something stupid. So he knew they were going to look over there, see them planning to do something stupid, and then them misinterpreting it like maybe we better go ahead and attack this in there, and falling basically right into his.
I love the bumbling performance of it too is so great, especially once they get stormed by all the guys and the one dude just like sits down in the cart pool or whatever. It's good stuff.
It was the pout fish dude who ended up sitting in the stream, and I was like, "Oh, that's too perfect."
Going back to his roots, trying to use those skills, bro.
The other scene where they were all scouting and coming back to tell him what was going on each time he's sleeping, and they come in, wake him up every time.
And like Jake said, that might have actually been Toshiro just sleeping on set.
That was a stupid plan, but maybe don't keep me awake, so let's do it.
I mean, look at the pictures that we're using for him right now. That dude enjoyed his naps for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was great. They kept waking his ass up when they were trying to figure out what was going on next door, because he told them that the enemy was next door. So he was trying to. He was trying to take a fucking nap, and everywhere he went.
I'm not convinced that Brandon or Jake or whoever proposed it at the beginning isn't right, and that this was actually just being shot as a different movie, and
he just kept popping up in it
on set, like taking an actual nap, and then just woke up and decided this movie was about him.
Well, bye, Brandon.
Maybe
he wasn't feeling good, so
that'd be funny way to find out. Funny to find out if it was true.
Oh, it just feels that way, man, because he just kind of steps into it. Like, this movie would have been a fine Kurosawa movie probably without even Toshiro Mifune being involved.
I don't see how it could have been without him.
They would have figured it out. They would have
It'd
cast
been different.
somebody, probably
I mean,
Toshiro Mifune
yeah,
as
I
one
don't
of the
know.
main dudes. But him
I'm glad
being
they did because
Sanjuro in it
they
makes it
redeemed
better.
him in my eyes because, like I said, I wasn't a fan of him in the first movie, but they redeemed him in this
I think
one.
the
I
reason
really
you're not a fan of the
enjoyed
first
him.
movie is because it is so closely parallel to the formula of what we know of westerns, and you're not a fan of that. This one
Probably.
is more
Yeah,
of
it
like
definitely
awesome
felt like a western.
You seemed like you enjoyed Lone Wolf and Cub as well. I feel like you'd
No,
enjoy a lot of
it
these.
was all
It's
right,
just,
but yeah.
I think Hanzo the Razor would be the one that you would enjoy the most, but because that is just pure hijinks, and I mean it's ridiculous.
Oh, by the way, guys, Brennan had a step.
Yeah. Who did we
Yeah.
lose there?
Looks like we just lost Kroll for a minute.
He stepped out too in respect,
Yes.
but point is, like, I just can't think of a funner sequel, in terms of these types of films than Sanjuro. It's so unique in that respect. It's like a Lethal Weapon movie or something, But it's the second fucking feature in a 1960s double feature of Akira Kurosawa samurai movies. I mean, it's kind of bonkers that this movie is as fun as it is when you really think about it. Am I alone in that?
No.
Yeah, it's a fun one. Okay, I see. Apparently, Kroll's backstage. Looks like.
Yeah, let him back in. Let's finish this.
Hold on.
Get her done.
Let's slit its throat while it's warm. Man. Come on, Dave.
I was in the middle of saying that Septum is gone. He had to go, and I fucking accidentally knocked myself out.
Yeah.
So yeah, I go too.
So I guess. I mean, did we leave anything out?
I think we got everything. Oh, the final scene.
My brother just bought me a Bud Light Gelato.
Oh yeah, we do have a fairly notable final boss battle here.
I guess the woman wanted to thank him or whatever, but she sends them out to find him because he took off and left the robe they gave him, and they find him on this road, and
we have a big banquet where we meet Horseface finally.
Yeah, the other guy, and that funny joke too. Yeah, of course, the other guy wants to fight him because of he fooled him, and which he fooled him well, But and of course, our main character he didn't want to fight him because he's like, one of us is gonna have to die, and he's like, he didn't want to do it, but he gets insisting. He's like, all right, but if I die, you leave them alone, all right, and just.
I feel like this is like the major league of samurai movies.
And then they start their fight, and a half second is over. He slips one,
pretty much
chops him across the neck, and I'm just like,
and we see a big blood spray.
I felt like I didn't even blink and still kind of miss what happened. Like what? I had to play back over in my own head to fucking know what the hell happened. It was like. Because it was just so fast. It was just so fast.
Fucking slings that blade quick, baby.
It was a badass move. I will not say anything like that was badass. I wanted the fight to last, but it was a badass move. So can't deny that. It was just fucking really bad. And again, they go with realistic, but I like entertainment, and realistic is not entertaining a lot. So.
And then, of course, all his little fanboys, his little groupies are trying to follow him. And he keeps saying, no, this is my life for you. Please stop. And finally, they just
downplay it, okay? The dude, the Horseface himself was willing to offer, old Sanjuro a fucking, position as one of his, like, official samurai.
Right.
But
You know,
But
they
you know,
had the whole
when-
kit for him, like the dope new kimono and all that stuff, or whatever you call them, robes,
yeah.
in that box.
Well, I don't
but
know what the hell they're called. So
he
it's
just
not
bounced.
he
And then they
understood
run
that
up.
he wouldn't have accepted that, but these kids
Yeah, he
don't
did.
quite get it. And then finally they get it and they kind of bow to him. And then he just like smiles, see you later, you know. They finally understand each other at the very end.
No, they could actually made a TV show out of
They
that, like
also understand each other
out of the
because he
second movie.
splatters that fucking weird snake-faced guy all over the fucking screen.
See, we
Which
should have had
we never got in the first one. We didn't technically get that good of a death for that dude in the first one. So I love the fact that they brought him back as like the main scumbag in this one. And at the end, Toshiro Mifune just fucking like splatters his ass. Like,
I mean, he
I
wasn't really the main
laughed- I
scumbag. He
laughed,
was more
like,
just like,
what the fuck is blood?
well, he's the main scumbag in terms of what we get at the end, I guess.
he was the foil. He was like the
If anything, he was pretty straight up because there's that
Yeah,
point
he
where
was.
he like is talking with Toshiro and he's like, "This dude's rotten. Like he's the rotten one."
And I'm
You
rotten too.
definitely fucking signed on to the wrong side, but
I-
I'm also rotten.
You know what?
So-
It
I
does.
just
It
feel
does
like-
remind me of Star Wars in the way with Darth Vader telling Luke that, "Oh, you'll be under the Emperor and everything, but together we can take the Emperor out and
I don't know.
rule the galaxy together."
I guess maybe his more straightforward attitude, like the way that he
He's less.
knew what he was on about and he was willing to admit it,
Yeah. he was an
kind of made him,
honest
I
man.
wouldn't say more honorable, but maybe, you know what I mean?
a little
Like,
bit.
He was
Yeah,
more lawful evil.
yeah, exactly. He had a code and he was following it. He wasn't quite like those other scumbags that were just kind of.
Yeah, chaotic evil.
So
Yeah. He was a little more like, okay, you're not gonna root for him, but you liked him a little bit. I mean, he wasn't the worst, and you could see him if things were different, he could have been the other shoes. They were both kind of like sell swords, like whatever. He just like he even saw it. He saw him in himself.
yeah,
He saw the other
you
dude.
bring
Like
up a
he's
good
just like
point
me.
there.
He's a sharp sword, just like me. He just didn't know when to sheath himself, and
And to his credit, Sanjuro seems like he is very bummed that he has to kill at several points in this.
Yeah, he did. He's like,
one of my
one of us
favorite
will have to
points in the
die.
movie will always be where he tells those dudes like, "This fucking bloodbath is because of you being
He smacks
fucking
them all.
idiots," and then he smacks the shit out of all of them. It's funny, but at the same time, it's also like not funny, because that's serious. He just had to kill like fucking 8 dudes, because these guys just didn't trust him and fucking, insisted on following him and getting caught.
Yeah.
That's a big thing. I mean, on the one hand, is Sanjuro down to kill those 8 dudes to do that? Obviously.
Well, there's really no problem, but he
he
didn't want to.
And
if they had just
want to, yeah,
he didn't want to. Killing is ridiculous.
I guess now we arrive at like the finer points. Okay, what do you guys think of the production design, costumes, and effects of this? I guess we'll start with you, Forrest.
Pretty much on par with. I would say for the most part, a lot of that was on par with Yojimbo, but when it comes to blood, the blood and gore, they definitely up the ante.
Yeah. I would have to agree with you, Forrest. They definitely upped the ante with some of the gore, which was where some of the films were going, anyways, during this time period. People love to see blood.
And also, I think someone noted earlier, or I know it's noted earlier, that this film definitely took place in a swankier zip code than the other one did.
Yeah.
So the production design definitely reflected that, and there was some great production design. And one thing, again, there were a couple of
Or was it
images.
just easier to do because it was the actual places,
Yeah.
that-
Well, like
like-
the I mentioned earlier, a couple of images had stuck with me over the years, and I hadn't really remembered exactly where from. But the idea, the fence between the two places that had the little brook running underneath, and the camellia flowers going down the brook.
I was just about to mention that, dude.
That,
It's the thought
that
out of
is
my
a
head.
very striking image for me. Very striking
They
image.
kept
And-
showing that, and I'm like, why do they keep
Mhm.
showing the brook like this? Like, why do they keep showing the flower
Right.
doing that and stuff? And then when they come up with that plan,
Right.
dude, I'm like, oh shit, that's probably why they were kept showing the brook. Like,
Right.
I don't know. Obviously, you noticed it. I didn't know who else noticed it, but I was thinking that,
And I appreciated.
was
I do
beautiful, though.
appreciate being a plant nut. Things that really do factor in. Again, tsubaki is a Japanese word I'm familiar with, and I am very familiar with camellias generally. I know how the flowers do tend to dehisce whole, and sometimes will fall whole to the ground. So the idea that they would just naturally fall into the stream from time to time and float down, it's something that works, and I really like that. And
the plant
use
thing
that
is clearly
signal.
something Kurosawa felt
Yeah.
something about because he put it into both movies.
Yeah.
It's not only just that, like, it's in that second one, but in the first one, I believe he uses the whatever the fucking field is, the
The mulberry field, yeah.
mulberries or whatever, where the silkworms are getting their thing, So there's a plant thing involved in the two or Sanjuro movies that bears more exploring. I would love to know why Kurosawa was interested in plants for those two movies.
It's quite possible. Might have been just as interested in bonsai plants as
Bonsai!
Well, and also camellias, tsubaki, are a major part of Japanese gardens. They are a very important plant in temple gardens, and you would imagine that a guy who is one of the wealthier people in the region, who has a manor, I could see his particular quirk being that he has cultivated dozens of camellias. I mean, that's a perfectly logical trait for a character like that to have. So, yeah. And even calling it the Camellia Mansion, would be... I mean, you could see the same thing like... you could see the same thing in the Deep South, where camellias are also super popular. But, of course, in Japan, you have the advantage of them actually being an indigenous part of the culture going back centuries instead of just a couple hundred years.
The plant thing was prevalent enough to me that I knew we would have this conversation, because it's like it's there, in both movies. So it's impossible to ignore once you get to Sanjuro, because it's like this dude clearly had like some horticultural, whatever you call it, thing going on. So.
It's funny. I was thinking. I was just about to say it right before Jake said it. It was like he took the thought right out of my head. But obviously, he's the plant guy. But I was just about to mention that scene.
It's great.
It is, and the robes looked a lot better in this one. They didn't feel like the same robe. The people, I could tell them apart way better. I mean, don't know who the fuck's who, like names. Like, I just don't know Japanese names, but I at least could tell what's going on and who was who and who the bad guys were. You know what I mean? It was clear cut. It was clear cut on who was who and more, and it was just enjoyable, really enjoyable. And even the music just kind of blended in, and just. It's perfect, and like I said, the scenery and the houses, they were way better. I just really enjoyed it, and I mean, obviously it's a different kind of town, but I don't know. I liked everything about this movie.
All right. Well, thank you. Yeah. I'm glad that you enjoyed it. It's a fun time.
I was very surprised that you enjoyed it, but I did. Yeah, I'm glad I did.
Where were we?
We were in production design and
Productions, and I think we've all talked about it, but
costume design. I thought the costumes were pretty good for this film, and the scenery, especially with the brook, was fantastic. I mean, I loved the fact that they used that natural looking brook to
the only miss was the waterfall.
So and like I said about the I did enjoy the fact that the females had more light in a positive note.
Right.
So.
Not to mention that Chidori, the daughter, was pretty cute.
It was, and we forgot to mention the scene when they were in the barn and they're like laying there, and she's talking about falling asleep on his
we're
arm,
gonna get to
his
that,
arm
I'm
and stuff.
sure.
But we didn't. So.
Well,
at first, I was thinking Auntie didn't have any teeth.
The mother.
The mother, but she was also the dude's aunt. So
that just happened sometimes back in those days, man.
Looked like she had something black in her mouth. Like I didn't know what it was.
Unfortunately, sometimes your aunt was the only lady in
master disguising gammy num nums.
So basically, it seemed like the two cousins were kissing cousins. They like alluded to.
Was Iori a cousin?
I
don't
family
think he was a cousin.
Thing.
Well, he said uncle and aunt.
Japanese
She's
films,
the daughter.
All inbreeding.
What's that?
She's the daughter of the uncle and aunt, and he's
but Iori is the one that was her boyfriend.
So that's his cousin.
No, I think the cousin was.
It was the cousin.
Which one was he?
I mean, I'm pretty sure I'm right, but hey, maybe that's where George Lucas got the idea to have Leia kiss Luke.
Hey, bro, most of us are fucking, dismissing totally the fact that most of our first crushes were probably on a cousin.
No, not even close.
My first, I guess, crush moment would be where I realized that my cousin Leanne had like really beautiful hair. So as like an 8-year-old, I would sit there and look at Leanne doing her hair, and I was like,
6.
"That's sick." Like I fucking love everything that's going on in my face right now.
I was 6, and
it wasn't like
a
sexual
redhead
thing because I was like an 8-year-old kid, but it was like definitely like I had a crush on her hair. I guess.
Me too. It was a little girl with fiery red hair, swinging on swings, and I came in and I'm like, "Hi, I'm Ronnie," and she's like, "I'm Anna."
Dude, she was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life. I think is her running that fucking brush through her hair as she was like hitting it with Aquanet, and it's like I'd just sit there and watch her as a little kid, and she'd fucking brush those bangs into that perfect, she'd do her whole lame 80s hairdo. But there was that moment where you see that hair being brushed into the spray. That was cool. And there's visually a lot of moments like that maybe in Sanjuro. So we're gonna move into favorite scenes right now. Favorite characters, favorite
Sounds
scenes.
fun.
Let's do that, Jacob. What is your favorite character and your favorite scene in Sanjuro?
I liked more of the characters in this one, like I said, but I still think Sanjuro is probably still my favorite character overall. Favorite scenes. There's a couple. But I do think, again, the scene where he tricks them into throwing the camellias down the stream was pretty hilarious and well,
Yeah.
well done. And I just really liked that scene. And there are probably, and yes, his first appearance where he just kind of comes out of the shadows and say, by the way, I've been listening to you guys. There were a couple good scenes scattered out, but I'd say that's probably what I'll go with.
What about you, Dave?
I have several favorites, and I think one of
We all
them
do.
is Sanjuro's napping scene. That's just priceless. He keeps trying to find a place to sleep, and they're like running exactly towards where he's going, and it's like, come on, man! I'm just trying to get some shit out here.
This is funny. I kind of actually do need to take a nap. Yeah.
And the dude just popping out of the closet. I mean, that's priceless too. Is like, by the way, I was listening to you guys. And I do have to admit, in a lazy kind of way, his samurai strategicness is what I like the most. So, and I think Sanjuro is my favorite character, although the dude in the closet is the second best.
It's so hard not to love that.
Oh yeah, I got him
out of the closet.
Mentioned the dude in the closet too. Yeah,
Kind of
It's
reminds
one
me
of the
South
funniest
Park
things I've
episode.
ever seen in
Trapped in
any
the
movie
closet.
ever, let alone this one. Yeah. Go ahead, Jake.
Jake,
Hello?
you're on mute.
oh, did you say something?
Yeah, go ahead.
I
You were
didn't
talking
have
about
anything.
that scene.
No. I just said the guy in the closet was one of my favorites too. I'd forgotten about that, but yeah, that was all I was saying.
Yeah. What's up?
How about you, Crow?
I do.
Sanjuro definitely kicked ass in this one. He was funny. He was he, like said, the samurai smarts, whatever you want to call it. It was just great. Everyone following him around was great. And the closet dude, yeah, 100%. If Sanjuro wasn't as awesome as he was in this one, I might have gone with the closet dude first. But yeah, he was fucking great, and he's partying with them. He's giving great advice, and he always goes back to the closet. Like nobody said you can stay out or anything. He just kept going back to the closet, and it was fucking hilarious. I'm glad they didn't because it was just so funny. And yeah, scenes like you guys. There's just a lot of great scenes. Where they kept interrupting them sleeping. Yes, definitely. The end with tricking them into setting the flowers down and doing his flare as well. And the end fight that lasted a half a second. That move was just so awesome. I have to mention it. As much as I wanted it to last longer, it was still an awesome fucking movie. And it was like, I was like, wait, what just happened? I know I ain't blinking nothing. I was looking at it right in front of my face on my computer, and I'm just like, still didn't realize what the fuck happened at first. It took a few seconds for me to realize he cut his throat. And it was just really fucking awesome. But I think I gotta mention one more fucking scene because I just fucking love it. At the beginning when they're all walking like caterpillars, like the caterpillar, and before they go to the barn, it's just fucking hilarious. But I mean, him pulling them all around everywhere and them following them like puppy dogs, and them constantly doing against what he says and fucking things up, and him having the effect. This whole thing is fucking hilarious. Just really is great. They could have made a TV show out of this out of him, like kung fu, only you call it samurai, and he just goes from town to town and like all this goofiness, and he's trying to fix people, and they're all fucking up, and he has to fix it and shit. And yeah, it would be great, be really great. Yeah, that's how much I enjoy this one. I would like to see a TV. Would have liked to have seen a TV show.
Okay. How about you, Forrest?
Favorite character? Definitely I agree with everybody else. Sanjuro is my favorite. Favorite scene. The end at the end when Sanjuro kills Hanbei. All that beautiful blood flying everywhere,
Right?
like a geyser.
I was like, whoa, that's fucking awesome. Yay, some blood finally.
Yeah, that was done in like one fucking move. I mean, that was just one swipe up, you know?
Like I said, just didn't even see what that. I was like, what the hell just happened? It was so quick.
Hey, what happened?
How about you, Mo? What was your favorite character and favorite scene?
Mo, you muted. You muted, Mo, if you're trying to talk.
Okay. Don't know what's going on there, but
I don't either.
I guess that's pretty much it for this movie. Then, unless we want to cover like music, did we cover music?
I just mentioned that I liked it, but in this one, other than that, no. Nobody else said anything.
Talk about the music for a moment. How did everyone feel about it?
I mean, it was again same composer we had in the last one, and I didn't feel like it was it didn't catch me quite as much, but it was very similar in a lot of ways.
I think the music in the first film, Yojimbo, was a little bit more dominant.
It was evasive in the first one.
But I guess it's a matter of opinion.
Yeah, I mean, if you liked it, it's not evasive, but if you don't, it's evasive. So we both agree it was more prominent. It was more prominent. That's more of a neutral word.
That might be true. It might have been a little more prominent in the first film, but yeah.
Why I liked it better in the second.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, hopefully you enjoyed our discussion on Sanjuro. And thanks once again, Mo, if you're still out there listening, at least. Thank you for suggesting both of these. I had a blast watching them for the first time. So let's go into our outros. How about you, Forrest? Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
All right, my name is Forrest Bennett. I'm an
Apologies for that, boys. My brother came down here wanting some books, so I lent him.
Oh, before we go into your
I seriously do apologize. Though it's just
it's okay, but it's your turn to say your favorite scenes and favorite character because we're done.
Yeah, there's not much else to do with it. My favorite scene probably. I don't know, that bloodbath where he slaps the shit out of the dudes. He's like, this butchery is because of you, because you guys fucked up. And then probably the end, where he splatters that dude all over the place. That's pretty great. I think I would wager that's all of our favorite scene in the entire.
Three of us
double feature, If you had to really pick a peak moment in the entire, affair, it's him splattering that dude. And that dude,
I concur.
That was brilliant. And then he's like, "No, it fucking wasn't. It was unfortunate. Get the fuck out of here, you little posers."
It was unfortunate, but it was funny as fuck.
True. So there's that. Sorry that I bailed on you guys there for a minute.
Oh.
My brother came down here weirdly asking to borrow books, which he hasn't done since we were little kids. So
We'll go
I had to
outside.
take a moment to. He borrowed Heir to the Empire. He borrowed the first Thomas Harris novel and the whole Silence of the Lambs thing.
Cool.
And
Empire's
My
awesome.
Side of the Mountain. So yeah, he's on some good tracks there.
Should
Right.
borrow the other two for the Empire.
Oh, he's going to, but yeah, we got to start him out slow.
Right.
The fact that he came down here even asking to borrow books is, like I said,
Go what?
it's
You
just
read
never
again?
happened since we were little kids.
You gotta read again?
Yeah, he's of course I will drop everything I'm doing right now and I can help you find those books. You know. So apologies again, but cheers to my brother for picking some good choices. You guys ever read any of those books?
Oh, I read Empire.
I have definitely read the Silence of the Lambs stuff. And Minus Side of the Mountain, I haven't read that book in like forever.
I read that
I
way
read that
back.
one
Never
since,
heard of
third
it.
grade. But plus, and then Silence of the Lambs. I started reading it when I was in middle school, but never got around to finishing it.
I feel like I started that one too. I don't recall. I know I always intended to read those books, but for the life of me, I could not swear to it whether I read Manhunter or Silence of the Lambs. I can say I never got to Hannibal.
Well, I blasted through them at
Which you
some
read, right?
point, but
So.
I can't say I retained much of it. The
Yeah.
movies are still the main thing.
Right.
The main thing, they're fine, I guess. I don't know. I'm always a fan of anybody reading more.
Oh yeah.
Especially when
Right.
it comes to like books that they probably read in school. So him taking those on is pretty cool. Yeah.
Better a book than taking a gun to the streets. That's for sure.
Yeah, right.
But let's start into our outros again. Forrest, let's go back to you and tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. My name is Forrest Bennett. I'm an independent producer and occasional actor based in Long Island, New York. I've always got stuff going on. Tomorrow I'll be filming a shot on video monster movie in Manhattan. Basically, I'll be doing what Jason, Pinhead, and probably Ghostface never really did. In terms of a horror movie villain taking Manhattan. I'm really excited to do that. You can also find me on Instagram. My name is Not Gump, where I do comic book pickups. My YouTube channel, Forrest Bennett, where I do movie pickups. And you can also catch me on a show called. You can catch me on a show called Under the Radar here in New York, where we review newer movies and TV shows, and on a podcast called Nostalgia Time with Kid Champagne, where we discuss 80s and 90s pop culture.
And coming soon,
Can you put that in
Slopaholics
comments?
presents Trauma Tuesday.
Can you
Yes,
put that in
I can't wait
comments
for that.
for me so I can find it? The
Yeah,
podcast.
we'll hook you up, bro.
Thanks.
Alrighty, heading over to you, Jake. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Okay, I'm Kotobukijake. I am the co-host of the YouTube channel SeptumSin versus the World, which is all about looking at physical media in all of its forms. Although we do occasionally do weird random stuff like me doing the Pocky One Chip Challenge, which aired, I think, last week. It was interesting. But we also do a lot of other stuff. We do a monthly anime discussion. Last month we covered the somewhat deservedly forgotten Clamp School Detectives. This month we'll be covering the movie Primari. We do pickup videos. We do, occasional random other things.
One
here
chip
and there.
challenge.
What's that?
you do occasional spicy chip challenges.
Well, like I said, you got that video up last week, so check it out. Brandon had bought 2 chips, but everyone else, and there were like 10 people in the room, they all bitched out, but I did one.
Of
So
course they did.
yeah. So that was like I said, that was interesting. And I keep busy, definitely. I have a full-time gig, but I also have a nursery that I co-founded that takes up a lot of time. We'll be doing a market tomorrow. We've got a big one coming up in 2 weeks. It cuts a lot into my viewing time, as does an unhealthy obsession with PC gaming that rears its ugly head now and then. But I do make time to watch these movies, to hang out with you fine folks here. This was a very good revisit. I enjoyed these movies. And I'll go ahead and mention, to guest Dave, you can probably give us more if you want to at the end, but I know Brandon wanted to make sure that we note that next week we'll be revisiting The Dark Crystal, which will be an interesting.
Yes.
I was gonna
Cannot fucking
mention
wait
that.
for that.
And
I can't wait for that. That's already
yeah,
good.
I have an unwatched copy. Yay! Hopefully, I'll actually get to watch it. And I have actually copies of Yojimbo and Sanjuro, but they were long since watched. I have not upgraded because I'm waiting. I don't know why Criterion has not put out a Kurosawa collection, but
Unfortunately, some of them are outside of the Criterion collection.
Well, this is a good moment to bring up something that
like
I
the
didn't
Russian
want
one.
to really highlight at the beginning because it is unfortunate. But my disc that I got of this one from Criterion is defective.
Oh, that's a shame.
I kind of forgot about it. It fucked me over the first time I was trying to watch Jimbo, like back when I got it. And then I forgot about it though. So when I was watching it for this one, it was like, what the fuck? And then I had to go back and like watch that scene on HBO Max and then come back to the DVD.
Well, at least they had Yojimbo.
Dude, the disc is fine. It's perfect. It's like in pristine, brand new condition. But there's a point, like right when where the dude is like, confronting Yojimbo and saying, Sanjuro and saying that, like he's on to the fact that he set that lady free and her husband. It just stops the DVD that I have, and then it picks up again like later once he's in their custody and they're like playing cards while he's laying on the floor. It's fucked up, and there's
it's unfortunate.
Like I said, the disc is fine. There's no scratches or blemishes on it. It's just a disc,
That's odd.
But I got a random, DVD that printed wrong or something, so I just have to, get a replacement disc.
Right.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
I don't do much. Sometimes I do discussions on my channel. Subscribe to Retro Cult on video, and maybe we'll hang out sometimes. That's it.
Slashaholics and cinema.
They can figure that out.
Because I'm on there too.
Well, Ron, Mr. Horse Space, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Okay. First thing I'm going to say is, Jacob, get out of my head. Twice now you said something right before I was going to say it. Well, I'm Kroll, aka Ron in real life. And Horseface for this. The dude was so ugly. I had to go with that name. It was so funny. I love reading. I love watching TV, playing video games, and of course coming on to these podcasts and talking about enjoyable movies and sometimes not so enjoyable movies. And we had, in my opinion, one of each tonight. So yeah, and I come on the podcast on Sunday with Dave and Delusions of Grandeur and talk about movies there as well as a few different people, and also Moonlight on Mo's channel with doing cinema and vlog and Stalkaholics and we just did Scream movies, all of them, all 5. Check it out.
Yeah,
if
that
you
was a
haven't.
rad time, dude.
It was really fun, and
One of the
and,
funnest streams I've ever done.
Moonlighted on
I would have liked to
anime,
go
on the
there.
anime one too, a couple times. I'll probably be back on that one as well. So yeah, I'm popping around here and there all over. Blink and you won't miss me because I'm there more.
Nah, he's around enough. We plug him in everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You never know where Crow's
You'll
gonna
see
show
him.
up. I'm like Yo Jimbo. Like, just don't know when I'm gonna show up. But I'm gonna eavesdrop around and pop it in.
Yep. So see you around. But anyways, my name is David Streggy. I'm one of the founding fathers of Inside Movies Galore. Hopefully you enjoyed our journey so far. We've covered a lot of ground. And it's a cool podcast where we get together every Tuesday and shoot the shit. So, but I also moonlight under a different channel where we also podcast on Sundays. In fact, this coming Sunday we're going to be doing a discussion on The Alien Dead, which is not a great movie. But it is one that I remember from
It is
my
a fun movie.
childhood when I was 8 years old. So, I was a little younger. I thought it was more gruesome than I do now, but we'll definitely have a cool discussion. So, hopefully, Mo, you'll be able to come along with us on that one.
It's my
And
plan.
but I also do some video pickups and video reviews from time to time, which I've got a backlog, a few films just to get some of those out there. But hopefully you can check out the channel and let me know what you think. Like, share, and subscribe, and hopefully see you next week for the Dark Crystal. So thank you all for joining me us tonight, and everyone say goodnight.
Yeah,
It'd be
Gracie.
such a fun discussion, dude.
Night,
Good night, everyone.
And
Jim
Dave, let me know when you do that pickup video. I'll join you because I got some pickups and I don't do my own, so I'll